Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I have learned as I have grown into the person that I am today. And I brought with me two meditation books, the Melody Beatty books, which I love so much. And I kind of like the title of both of them, so I don't know if I'm going to get through both of them, but I'm going to start with the Journey to the Heart by Melody Beatty. And the meditation in here says, honor this time of change. I left Point Reyes, a seashore town close to San Francisco, heading for Sequoia National Park. I wanted to cross the Golden Gate Bridge, but I wasn't certain I could find it. City traffic was jarring after being in the woods, the mountains, and by the sea. Before long, however, I found myself at the foot of the Golden Gate. As I drove the span of the bridge, I felt the same electric charge surge through me as I had felt in Chimaya, in Ojo Caliente, and on the Flathead Reservation. It was the first time I realized that bridges are holy, sacred ground. Times of change are holy. We may not know where we're going. It may not feel like our feet are on solid ground. They aren't. We're crossing a bridge to another part of our lives. Sometimes we may find ourselves at this bridge unwittingly, not certain how we got there, not certain we want to cross. Other times we may have sought, prayed for, hoped for, longed for this time of change. Drive across the bridge. You don't have to understand it all right now. Information and understanding will come later. You'll get to the other side. For now, trust and experience what you're going through. Know that this time of change is sacred too. It's interesting meditation. I read this book years ago. I think it was called Transitions. My mother had given it to me. And the book was about how in our lives we go through, I think it was like 8 or 9 or 10 transitions in our lives. And those transitions can be major transitions, right? Those transitions can be careers, relationships, moving, even just from a house to a house or apartment to apartment or across country. But major transitions in our life. As I've gotten older, one of the things I've realized is that those changes don't necessarily need to be what I consider now physical changes, like a relationship breaking up or ending, right? Or like a career ending or changing or moving from one place to another. I think also those major changes that we go through in our lives can be philosophical changes that we feel inside. Major philosophical changes of perspective and how we look at things and looking at things in a different way. I can say that definitely within the last 5 years, my life has gotten much simpler. And so when I look at things today, I look at things in a much simpler way than I did 5, 10, 15 years ago, right? I would say I'm still a driven person by the things that I want to do, but 15 years ago, I was like very driven, very goal-oriented, want to get this done, want to get that done. I would say as I've gotten older, my goals have changed. They're not so much goals to check off on a list before I die. They're more goals of making my house cozy and homey, and having a peaceful night's sleep or having peace and serenity in my life, those are goals in my life today that I didn't really recognize at the time were so important to me. So those things have changed for me over time. Perspective has really changed for me. I also think that gratitude has really changed for me through the years, that today it's really about looking at my life through the lens of gratitude and being grateful for all that I've been given, from my life and my health, my sobriety, to my marriage, to my dog, Boo Radley, to all the dogs I've had, to my home, to clean water to drink, to food to eat. I could go on and on and on and on and on. And I think that's been another perspective that has changed. Almost kind of from a negative to a positive, because in the past, even sober, the way that I would look at the world was what I didn't have and what I wanted, or what I wanted to achieve and aiming for what I wanted to achieve. Instead, now, You know, I had this friend of mine way back in the day that used to say this prayer, and I love this. I don't know why, I just remembered this. Maybe I needed to do this meditation today just to remember this prayer. But he used to say this prayer, and it was very simple, and I loved it. And it was, God, help me to want what I already have. And, you know, it's taken me, I think, like that was something I heard in my first year of sobriety. Maybe, I think it was my first year of sobriety that I heard that. Bless you, Boo Radley. And early on, first couple years of sobriety. So it's taken me, you know, 25 years to, I think, really get to a point where I do want what I already have. But there were many years where I was constantly going for the dream, you know? And I see friends of mine, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, don't get me wrong, right? Like, I think to want to be at the pinnacle of your career or want to write a book or be at, you know, win an Oscar, I think all of those things are great, right? I just think for me, one of the things I've learned is I don't want to lose myself at the expense of going for these dreams that I may never achieve, you know? And I know that even like in the last couple of years, it's probably, if you've watched this channel, those are like, it's probably contradictory to things I've said where I said, oh, well, you know, if like you're doing community theater because you want to win an Oscar someday, like it might be the people that you meet. And I agree with that, right? So I think it's about checking in with yourself and saying like, am I content in what I'm doing? Or do I always just have one eye on the prize? Like if you always have one eye on the prize, you're kind of losing sight on why you're doing what you're doing or what you're doing, if that makes sense. I don't know if what I'm saying is making any sense, but for me, it's like those days in the past when I just was so driven and so like, gotta get this done and gotta get that done and gotta achieve this and gotta achieve that, right? It was like, I was so tired all the time. Like I was so exhausted and I didn't feel any happier than I felt less happy than I felt today, right? You know? And so, and I see friends of mine sometimes that of all different ages that are just like spinning their wheels and I'm just like, slow down and enjoy life a little bit. You know, life is not to be rushed. You know, we're all gonna end up at the same place. You know, it's like, slow down, like enjoy it a little bit more. You know what I mean? And allow yourself to change and to kind of mold over time with your experiences, you know? And I love that she uses the analogy in here of a bridge because I think it's like bridging two periods of our lives together. And I think like when I look at my life, like that's really what it is. It's not like 1 second I just woke up and I was a changed person, you know? It was like I traveled the course of this bridge from one side to the other to kind of from one experience to the other, from one life experience to the other, from one relationship to the next, from one career to the next, that I kind of like transitioned over time, you know? And I'm thankful for that, you know? I look back on my life and I think, I've had so many different experiences in my life and I've been so many different places and I'm not just talking about traveling, I'm talking about just, you know, whatever in my life and I think about that and I think, wow, I'm really blessed. Like I've really lived like a full life of, you know, just being able to experience all kinds of different things, you know? You know, if you had told me like 6.5 years ago that my life every day would be getting up and making YouTube videos, I never would have believed that. Never. My life looked completely different to that, right? So the fact that I get to get up every single day now and make YouTube videos is like miraculous to me and so cool. And so I never would have believed that in the past, right? And so that's one transition that has been huge for me. I don't ever, you know, close off the idea that there might be something further down the road that one day I'm not doing YouTube anymore. Maybe it's something else. I hope not because I love YouTube. But, you know, I've loved all areas of my life. So I don't know that down the road, you know, that this won't transition into something else. I just don't know, you know. And I think today, I used to always say I hated change, that I was scared of change, that I didn't like change, you know, and I would say that like to people that I, you know, wanted to stay in the same house or same apartment for my entire life and I didn't like it. Now I kind of embrace change a little bit, you know. I don't like too much of it, but I do like when it happens, it's like, well, it's going to happen anyway, so you have to kind of embrace it, right, and accept it and enjoy it. So I try to. All right, let's read the next meditation, and this is from The Language of Letting Go. Our good points, October 19th. What's a codependent? The answer is easy. They are some of the most loving, caring people I know from Beyond Codependency. We don't need to limit an inventory of ourselves to the negatives. Focusing only on what's wrong is a core issue in our codependency. Honestly, fearlessly ask, what's right with me? What are my good points? Am I a loving, caring, nurturing person? We may have neglected to love ourselves in the process of caring for others, but nurturing is an asset. Is there something I do particularly well? Do I have a strong faith? Am I good at being there for others? Am I good as part of a team or as a leader? Do I have a way with words or with emotions? Do I have a sense of humor? Do I brighten people up? Am I good at comforting others? Do I have an ability to make something good out of barely nothing at all? Do I see the best in people? These are character assets. We may have gone to an extreme with these, but that's okay. We are now on our way to finding balance. Recovery is not about eliminating our personality. Recovery aims at changing, accepting, working around, or transforming our negatives, and building on our positives. We all have assets. We only need to focus on them, empower them, and draw them out in ourselves. Codependents are some of the most loving, caring people around. Now, we're learning to give some of that concern and nurturing to ourselves. Today, I will focus on what's right about me. I will give myself some of the caring I've extended to the world. You know, it's interesting because when I do inventory and I do evaluation of my life, I typically do focus mostly on the neighbor dogs in the backyard who started barking. So, but anyway, you know, typically when I do inventory and evaluation in my life, especially with my sponsor, you know, I wouldn't say it's focused on the negative. I don't necessarily like that word, but it is focused on the areas that I need to work on. You know, and I think... but that's a different kind of inventory. That's inventory that I'm doing of things to work on in my life. You know, I think to do inventory and to make a list of all of my positive character traits, I think is a really good idea, you know? I remember with my sponsor that I had for most of my sobriety, the one that passed away most recently, and you know, when I would go into meetings and I had a hard time like looking up, walking into a room and looking up, and a lot of it was my social anxiety, a lot of it was just like, you know, shame and things like that. And he would go like this, and he would say, when you walk into a room, you hold your head up high because today you are a person of character. And you know, it took me a really long time to walk into a room with my head held high as a person of character, because I didn't believe that. I didn't believe these good things about me. And I also believe, like, even like reading that book, to say those things about myself sounds, I feel like, arrogant to like acknowledge, well, I'm helpful with people, or, you know, I have a way with words, or, you know, to say anything positive about ourselves, I think sounds arrogant. It sounds cocky. I will say that I admire people that are able to do those things. I am able to do it in, let's say, the solace of my own room by myself, you know, but to have a conversation with people and say, well, you know, I'm pretty good with words, you know, like, I don't know that I could ever have that conversation. And I don't think that that's what the book is referring to. Right. But I think the opposite is so true. You know, it's like we so easily are able to beat ourselves up and to tell ourselves all of the bad things about ourselves. You know, I could tell you all of the bad things about me before I could even list one or two good things about me. That's today. That's today at 27 and a half years sober. You know, I could list for you everything that you could find wrong with me, probably because I would want to find it before you did, number one. Number two, because I would want you to know that I acknowledge those things and I'm working on them, because I do, you know. But it's easier, I think, to pick ourselves apart. And that's for those of us that have grown up in situations, I think, where we grew up in trauma, you know. And we grew up with just people picking on us and people saying things, whether that was parents or grandparents or kids in school or teachers or whatever, right? Picking. And that what happened over time was we started doing that to ourselves. We started picking at ourselves. And it's just stuck. And we continue to do it today. You know? Some of the most fantastic people that I know that are so giving and loving and can do so much for everybody else and everybody else out there in the entire world, and they are some of the most giving people that I know, could not tell you one good thing. They could not tell you one good character asset or one good trait about themselves. They just couldn't at all, you know, because that's not how they think. They only think in terms of, you know, like, I'm not this great person, and so let me show you who I am through my actions, which that's fine too. But I think, like, we spend so much of our lives in the negative. Why not spend some of our lives in the positive, being honest with ourselves about the good things about ourselves too, because there are good things about us, you know? So that's your homework for tonight. Your homework is that you're going to make a list, 3 to 5, that's all it has to be, okay? 3 to 5, you know, good things about yourself. And character assets, you know, it can, if you need to get yourself started by saying, like, I'm a good cook, I'm a good gardener, that's fine, right? But character assets, like the book was talking about, you know, where it says in here, am I good at being there for others? You know, there's a lot of people out there that aren't good for being there for themselves, but they're good there for being for others. Do I brighten people up? You know, do I have an ability to make something good out of barely nothing at all? There's a lot of people that can do that, you know? And so it's all about this, what's right with me? What are the good things about me? Because we are our own worst enemy, and we beat ourselves up more than anybody else out there. And it's got to stop. It's got to stop because we deserve better. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.